There's always certain challenges which happens around the workplace. How do you see that, if they really wanted to become a better allies, they really need to understand those unconscious biases and overcome those?
The fundamental thing which came out was that allyship has elements of proactiveness and allyship has elements of personhood.
At a leadership role, do you need to inculcate some kind of policies or regulations which can foster a culture of allyship?
I don't think that it's really about creating a policy framework. Yes, those are important because you want to catch the bias when it happens and you want to nip it. But what's more important is sensitization.
What are those tangible actions that men can take to have a better allyship?
Leadership, at a leadership level, there are more men than women. Why is this happening? We are starting the journey at the same time.
Yep.
Why is that men are reaching the leadership position in more numbers than females?
How have you seen men allies contributing meaningfully to breaking this gender biasness in the workplace?
So it's not a one size fits all. You have to look at policy and you have to look at what you can do for each of those age cohorts to make your efforts meaningful.
Thank you again for your patience. So thank you so much, Priyanka, first of all, and good afternoon, everyone. The topic, when I actually got the topic, I was like, why allyship and why men as catalyst? But when I was doing the teaser, Preeti ma'am actually broke the jinx and said it is basically a corporate responsibility. And if you would have seen all the teasers, all the 4 delegates have their own perspective, and which is why we are here today, to understand from the experts as to how a workplace diversity, inclusivity and equity needs to be followed. And what exactly do we need to ensure that there are no biasness, there are no concerns, there are no issues, and more of a happy workplace. So thank you again, Smriti, Preeti ma'am, Sharmila ma'am and Dixit to come on board and have this flight take off.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here.
So we'll, for the next 40 minutes, I'm going to utilize your time and we'll start with, again, how the first question which we actually asked during teaser point, what exactly allyship means to you, and to give a little bit essentiality on what is basically advancing gender equality is.
Thanks, Ankesh. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a fantastic topic, very close to my heart. For me, allyship is as basic as friendship. If you can be my true friend in all spheres of my life, rooting for my growth, my success, paving way for me, and it should be beyond any kind of discrimination, barriers of color, caste, creed, gender, and complete inclusivity. I think that's allyship for me. And it's really about creating that that platform that, like Preeti ma'am said, that it's about an organizational responsibility, not one person's. And it's not about the spotlight being on you. It's about really creating that spotlight that everybody can shine. So that's what it means for me.
Preeti ma'am.
And actually very well said, because you're absolutely right. An ally is a friend, and we all need friends. We all need somebody who's got our back. And we forget that when we come into a workplace, we're complete strangers. They're not like our friends or relatives or neighbors. So if you have to build relationships at work, and if your workplace has to be a pleasurable place, you need friends. Yeah. And that's what allies are. And I will again repeat, allies are not necessarily only men.
Yep.
They can be women as well. But I think there is one fact, which is that our workplaces are still largely male dominated. So if you're looking for allies, you have to go to men. You can't get away from that. So that's why men are required, but a sisterhood is also important. And that's really what allyship means to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should I use this?
Yeah.
All right. So, Ankesh, the starting question is a very, very pertinent one. And the journey of Sharmila, a small town girl from Hindi medium UP, to Sharmila today, has been a journey of allyship in the workplace. So, what is allyship? Allyship is transformation rather than being confrontational. Allyship is all about being empathetic rather than being sympathetic. Allyship is all about partnership rather than being benevolent towards another gender. So those are the core, I think, values which I associate with allyship.
Thank you so much, Sharmila ma'am. And Dixit, considering we actually got these from the women, what does allyship means to you at a workplace when you work with the women?
Thank you so much, Ankesh, and some wonderful thoughts by all of you. To me, allyship in a work environment is a place where we are giving equal opportunities to growth to all the employees, without making any distinction between whether it's male or female, or whether it's a place or whether it's a caste. When I joined the MR industry, and Sharmila, you may not remember now,
I remember.
and for the audience, Sharmila is the one who recruited me for the MR industry in 2005, and in March 2005 I met you first.
So I'm to be blamed.
Yeah, so 20 years of that celebration.
Yes.
So when I joined the MR industry, there was a lot of discussions around, this, MR industry is governed by these set of people. Right? Or, so when I joined, I said, thankfully we have a Punjabi in the MR industry. So I think from there till now, we have made a huge change now, where we are not talking about these things. But over the last few days, I spoke to a lot of my colleagues, especially female colleagues, in terms of what do they feel about this topic. And I feel there are still a lot of gaps that we need to address and that we are going to speak about. So for me, allyship is all about being equal at the workplace. And Madhu, tomorrow morning, please ask your child how does he feel if there is no male in the I can tell you the response would be the same. Actually, we need everyone at an equal level.
Yeah. Well said. Well said.
Well, I see there's a personal experience around it. And since you made a very valid point, I think it is the first woman who actually recruited you in MR, and that's where things happens. Preeti ma'am, I'll ask this question to you. How have you seen men allies contributing meaningfully to breaking this gender biasness in the workplace?
I need the mic. So I was with Kantar, which is this global company, etc. And I reiterate that it has to start from the top. Because we had a CEO, Eric Salama, who truly believed in this, and so he gave it heft. He set up processes. He set up a structure. And he even then we had DEI committees in every country and all of that. But more importantly, he also got the men, and we had unconscious bias training for men. We had programs for getting more women into the workplace. Actually, getting women into the workplace never been an issue. It's making them stay, which is the issue. And so he gave us goals and targets for all of that. And then the ways of how to make sure that they stay. For instance, we had the usual mentoring, etc. But also we set up creches. We also did a lot of work with managers of women who came back from maternity leave, because that's always that very critical time when when it's very tempting for women to want to leave, and it's often not the women so much as the people who they work for who say, oh my God, I've got this is it. She's gone for 6 months and then she'll come back. She won't work. Counseling them and making sure that is their attitudes are pro women and gender equality. So we did a lot of work in that area, and as I said, it's a corporate responsibility. It's also not HR's responsibility. The other thing people say is, well, HR will do it. No, it is your responsibility. and the organization will help and support you, and that's what we did.
And Sharmila ma'am, so generally, what ma'am mentioned is there's always a bias. There's always an unconscious bias around it. And considering that, men, sometimes they recognize, sometimes they don't. There's always certain challenges which happens around the workplace. How do you see that, if they really wanted to become a better allies, they really need to understand those unconscious biasness and overcome those?
Ankesh, it is really interesting that you are asking me the question because yesterday we had a very, open discussion in our, the small event that we had to celebrate International Women's Day yesterday in our office. And there were a lot of discussions because the topic was that how do you set your priorities with respect to what International Women's Day has given as a call, which is about accelerating, action. The fundamental thing which came out was that allyship has elements of proactiveness and allyship has elements of personhood rather than just being systemic. And I completely agree with Preeti that it is not the responsibility of the HR department to have policies, and yes, policies will be needed, but that cannot drive the culture. So the culture has to imbibe it. And therefore, yesterday we actually drew a very short list of maybe things that men can do in the workplace to actually overcome the biases. The first thing was to start asking why rather than what. So whatever is making them uncomfortable in the workplace, why has a woman been given the charge of organizing an event? I called a colleague at night just to check whether she has reached home safely, and she asked me, have you reached home safely? Was she being sarcastic or did I overstep? So wherever there is a bit of a discomfort, ask yourself, why am I discomfort by this? Rather than just putting it as, women are like this
Yes, yeah.
only. Yeah. The second thing was to listen and then ask. So rather than assuming thing, give women that safe space, and it is not about physical safety that I am talking about. Give women the space to be vulnerable and to be themselves.
Yes, yeah.
Listen and then ask what, or why they are saying certain things. Another aspect which came up was about, overcoming their own feelings of feeling attacked by women. Because it is so natural and normal in the patriarchal society that we live in that whenever a woman says something, men feel attacked, that it is against them. It is probably, going to be a step in the positive direction if they recognize that they feel attacked, and if they stop themselves from doing that and rather, go into what is actually being said. The last thing was simply ask. If you want to overcome your biases, again, don't go by your assumptions, don't go by guesswork. Just ask the woman, does she want help? Would she like to, do things differently? What is her perspective? So just by, simply asking, biases can be overcome.
That's beautiful. And Smriti, since you're a women entrepreneur, you're running your own company, do you think as a leadership, at a leadership role, do you need to inculcate some kind of policies or regulations which can foster a culture of allyship?
So I wouldn't say policies help. Yes, we do have them for the sake of having them. I think what really helps is that can we inculcate a culture in the team, in the people that we are recruiting when we are recruiting them? Are we biased when we are recruiting them for certain roles? Like, I'll tell you, maybe, Sharmila ma'am might agree that erstwhile qualitative was only supposed to be a space for women. Why? Because women are more empathetic, they are more soft, they can talk, they can chat. And trust me, I have had more male core researchers in my team over years because I've handled categories which are predominantly men-oriented, automotive, tech, rather than soaps. So I don't think that it's really about creating a policy framework. Yes, those are important because you want to catch the bias when it happens and you want to nip it. But what's more important is sensitization. Very importantly, a very important thing that happened in a woman's life when she's in her 30s, right? She is at the prime of her career and she's also supposed to be a mother.
Yes.
At that very moment, she is in a crossroad and she has to take a decision of her life with really no support probably from her home as well. So how can workplaces be creating that support for the women, knowing that they will go through this phase? It's not going to be a random scenario. It's going to pretty much happen in every woman's life. And honestly, it pains me when I see that there are very few women in leadership role in our industry, or if who are there, probably have had huge sacrifices to make in their personal lives. And I know a lot of them personally. So I think I'm very fortunate that I had male allies all through my life, at my career, at home, as my father, my husband, who always have been, pushing me to chase my dreams, to always beat the limits, to be the support system. And I created that support system at workplace. So I was smart enough to do that. But would the organization create a platform for it? Yes. I guess we ought to. And as an entrepreneur, because I do have that flexibility, I do that for my team. So I do have a very systematic way of dealing with that part of women's life where she doesn't have to give up on her dreams, she doesn't have to give up on her career, her independence, and she can still do pretty much whatever she had to do without compromise.
Great.
That's again very articulated and very beautifully mentioned. And I think one of the questions that you just answered about, asking why and how, Dixit, this is for you. What are those tangible actions that men can take to have a better allyship, and especially when you're being recruited by a woman into an MR industry?
I think this is going to be a very interesting question. I would like to draw more attention on this because this is very, very interesting. First of all, when we say what we can do as a men leaders, I think leaders is a very, very responsible term, and we should not assign a male leader or female leader to a term leader. In my 23 years of career, I've spent 17 years with female leaders, if I can say now, but those were good leaders. I learned from leaders, not just from female leaders, from leaders. So that's one thing, it's still a long way to go here, but I think this is a direction in which we should move in terms of defining the leadership. Point number two, when we say that what can men do, my counter question is, how is women supporting women at workplaces to drive or promote allyship? And I think these are things which we can discuss, debate about. But this is also a very pertinent question which I got as a feedback that there is a lot that can be done in that space as well. Third, we say that leadership at a leadership level, there are more men than women. Why is this happening? We are starting the journey at the same time.
Yep.
Why is that men are reaching to the leadership position in more numbers than females? So what are the speed breakers at which women is getting behind? And I think we are going to talk about this because the motherhood part, a maternity part that we spoke about, Lord said that we had to do compromises at that level.
Yep.
And there is an internal system responsible in terms of our society, and there are external systems, and there are support at the workplace which was also missing, which we need to fill. So we can discuss more on that, but since you asked me what we can do or what I do, I think there are a cycle here which we can do to promote allyship at the workplace, which means we need to identify the high potential candidates, male female both, because it's equal. Right? So we will identify the high potential female colleagues. I think it is important for us to give them visibility and improve their salience at the workplace. It is important that they are a part of different committees in the workplace, like a culture committee or a technical committee or a sports committee, where they can influence the decisions at the organization level. As Sharmila said, we need to listen to their concerns. What are the biases that are stopping them? And we need to drive those biases. How can we address those biases? So asking the questions like in an interview, like, are you planning to get married?
Yeah. Yeah. What will you
Are
do
you
when
planning
you
to
have
start a
children?
family?
Yeah.
Just not acceptable.
Yeah.
Please push it hard in your offices if you feel that those kinds of questions are being asked of females. It's not possible. It's not right. After that, I think make them also accountable. It's important that we are giving them right opportunities because they deserve that, but they need to be accountable as well. And last but not the least, I think we should also encourage females to celebrate their achievements. Women typically, it's okay, I have done that, but please make a noise about your achievements. As I was hearing Twinkle Khanna yesterday putting up a post, मैं जो बोलती हूँ वो करती हूँ और जो करती हूँ उसको जोर जोर से बोलती हूँ. Very, very important that we celebrate and take credit for the great work that we are doing. So that's a part at a workplace. But I think this will not be successful till the time we have a support and ecosystem available at the workplace, from a mother, from a father, from a father-in-law, from a brother. So last night I was speaking to a young girl, tech girl, and she said, I am doing work from home, my brother is doing work from home. And I am being asked, beta usko khana laga do. It's mind meeting also going on.
Yeah.
Why is that in our culture we say, mere bhai ke liye khana laga do, mere bhai ko pani la ke de do? It's also mind meetings.
Yeah.
When I am doing work from home and senior female leaders saying all these things, my dhobi will come and say, Madam, itne kapde hain. Husband bahar baitha hai, yaar, usse pucho. Right? Why in these are the smaller things which makes us feel, hey, the world is not equal. Right?
Yeah.
Men is a provider, women as a professional is a supporter. Men cannot adjust, women can adapt. I think these are the stereotypes that we need to challenge and challenge strongly so that we have an allyship at the workplace.
Excellent. Very good.
And it should not be lip service. It cannot be about great discussions at the conferences or panel discussions at great forum like Wire. When we go back to the offices, we
must
need
do
to
it.
put this in action.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think Taluna is definitely having one tomorrow. And considering Preeti ma'am, he made a very vital point. I mean, there have been a lot of cases where we understand there's a disparity between gender equality.
Yeah.
How does, our industry can play a vital role? I mean, data and research can play a vital role.
Okay. Actually, research and data is very important, and I'll give you some examples of how we used it at Kanta when we were putting our D&I program together. We did the classic one of doing a baseline, which is how many women in various in senior leadership positions in various functions, and and we found, for instance, that in research the job is not as hard, but finance and ops hardly had any women. So so that's where you have to work. The other thing we did was we found, we looked at various age cohorts and we said, what are their needs from the organization in terms of equality. And you will find, for instance, when somebody is just starting out, what they need is very different from somebody who's at the motherhood stage, or somebody or women who are at a post, slightly older women. So it's not a one size fits all. You have to look at policy and you have to look at what you can do for each of those age cohorts to make your efforts meaningful. We also did work within the organization on employee attitudes to to, how inclusive they found the organization. So we have measures for that, and actually Kantar used to offer that as a service to other companies as well, to measure in the extent of how inclusive is the organization. And then later we were monitoring also, whether all the efforts that we put in, have they yielded anything. So it's a classic one of what you tell clients you do for yourself as well, that you measure, you monitor, and then you measure again. And you look at needs. At different people have different needs. How do you devise a policy that meets the needs of various people? So it's an important thing. You should do it as researchers. We should do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And since it's all about research, we always ask why as well. Go back to Sharmila ma'am again. You said, we should echo our voice. We should ask questions. How many times have you seen that women feel so hesitant to talk about, they call out these biases or seek support? And if that is so, how can, that psychological barrier can be removed and safe places can be created?
Once again, a very pertinent question, Ankesh. Women often become silent because the biases are too ingrained in everything we do. An event has to be organized. The men in the office will go and check out the venue. The women will set the menu. Yeah. A cake cutting has happened in office. The women in office will distribute portions of that cake. A tech question has emerged. Ask the boys. Okay. So therefore, these kinds of things happen like so automatically and so naturally that it really silences many voices. In my mind, to overcome this and make it possible for women to actually speak up, different things have to be done at different levels. The first thing is definitely the organization's culture. Gender consciousness, it has to become an everyday kind of a topic rather than something that we discuss on International Women's Day and then remaining 364 days we are oblivious to that. Okay? And that can be done only if the culture is actually very, very actively working towards developing equity and equality. And I'm emphasizing equity because, Dixit also made the statement that the meritocracy bit should be applied to both men and women. There, we are not talking about, giving an advantage to women, but then the culture has to recognize the small elements which are actually demonstrating more of gender bias rather than gender equality. At Purple Audacity, we actually place a great emphasis on culture. In fact, one of our senior most VP level, Nandita Singh, she is in charge of the culture of the organization. And there are very regular kind of catch-ups on the 4 pillars that we have identified, which build our culture. The second thing is to have a very sincere and a very genuine redressal system.
Yeah.
And it is connected with culture because the culture has to emphasize that redressal is not akin always to punishment. And there has to be an openness among women that we can actually voice it to the redressal system because it will very, keeping everything confidential, it will actually try to solve the issue. Last but not the least, the leadership role cannot be denied in identifying. The leaders themselves have to actually learn the articulation of immediately pointing out certain things which are not acceptable if we talk about equality. Have the language, have the proactiveness, and have the courage to point that out immediately. So those
Sure.
will be the three things that I will talk about.
I like all of them, and I think if Nandita is here, please reach out to her because,
She
as Dixit mentioned, we should have these things in our organizations. And if you need any support, I think two of the gentries here, they've just categorically mentioned what you guys need to do that. And then I'll take another opinion from Smriti on this. Considering that you run a vision-driven organization, what innovative approach would you see?
Great. So I think one of the most important things is because we are a very young organization, a lot of my hires are much younger than me. I have a lot of Gen Zs in my team. What I've learned from them is very interesting. You know, all these biases that we are talking about are biases that have come down from generations. Interestingly, the generation that we are working with today, which is the Z generation, does not believe in them inherently. And why is that? Because as parents, the millennial parents have been raising them equal, right? There are more boys today of that generation who cook at home, who do their own laundry, who make their own beds, who have seen their mothers working and contributing equally. So they are already sensitized. So what really helps us, and what I do very, very consciously, is reverse mentoring. So a lot of the female Gen Zs in my team, they are given the responsibility to create that sensitization, and I think I need to protect the men because it's kind of becoming a scarier place for them to coexist. And yes, I have to, kind of push their voice all the time. The other interesting thing that I have started inculcating is that why should that stage in life when you become parents be only a responsibility that we need to focus on the woman in the team? When you have a male colleague who becomes a father, he needs to also have that time.
Yeah.
So why can't you have an equal parenting policy, irrespective of the gender?
Yeah.
Because then you are encouraging them to be more sensitive to what the female counterpart goes through, and she could also return to her work faster, and then creating that ecosystem. And of course, beyond that, it's about equal pay. So none of our hires are discriminated in pay with respect to their genders. It's only meritocracy that matters, whether it comes to increments, whether it comes to promotions, anything and everything. You have to earn it, besides and beyond your gender. I think that's something that is pretty much in our DNA and we live by it.
Thank you, Smriti. Dixit, you mentioned a couple of examples, considering that men really wanted to become allies, and what they exactly fear is, making certain mistakes. So, how do we create an environment where learning and unlearnings are encouraged?
Ankesh, before I answer this, let me go back to the first point that you made. Men really wants to become allies.
Yeah.
I think the first thing men needs to learn. Let me give you an example. How many of you have seen a movie, Abhiman, 1973 movie?
Yeah.
Bachchan?
The ultimate patriarchy.
Yeah.
Remember that movie? Yes. There is a dialogue in that movie which is still very applicable. If you know that movie, Amitabh is a great singer, but Jaya is a more talented singer than Amitabh. And the lyric says, Suveer की mistake ना कर मैं I'm just repeating that. सुवीर ये गलती ना करे जया उमा को अपने साथ गाने की क्योंकि उमा उससे ज़्यादा talented है और हमारा इतिहास हमें ये सिखाता है कि पुरुष नारी से श्रेष्ठ है. वो कभी बर्दाश्त नहीं कर सकता कि उसकी वाइफ उससे आगे बढ़े. If men really wants to become allies, I think we need to take this very strongly. Women can be more talented than men. Women can earn more than men. It's perfectly okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important thing. We need to bring in the second point. What was the question in terms of?
How can we unlearn and learn?
Unlearn, you were saying.
I think why men struggle to become allies. I think there is a lot of fear as well. And let me just give you some examples, right? What will people say if I'm supporting a woman? How would my office environment react to that? Corsets. I can't afford that. In terms of there is a push, right? How will my actions, my words will be taken? I'm not sure of, right? So I think this also becomes a very, very strong responsibility at the end of females to use all these laws very, very responsibly and make men comfortable that allyship is not a status, it is a journey. We will both learn and unlearn at the same time. Right? So have an open dialogue with them. What do you like? And if there is a feedback, let that feedback in private so that there is no public shaming on those things. I think, I've spoken to a few males as well and they say, what's happening? Right? How will they react? अभी मैं WhatsApp message भेजूंगा, right? इस पे कौन सी मुझे लगाऊंगा? I need to be very, very careful on those things, right? I think it's we are it's a new word that we are talking about here. So I think it's equally important that rules are balanced. POSH is a very, very strong rule. I appreciate that. I myself is a part of POSH committee, right? And very strong. If you go back to your offices tomorrow, please push for a paternity leave for men as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Paternal, you may do that,
equal, right?
yeah.
Men also want to celebrate the
Yeah.
birth of
Yeah.
birth of this child.
Or they can divide it. No?
Right? Why are you making it divide? A lot of people talking about maternity leave. Please push for paternity leave as well with your colleagues, and we will see that we are together working for the election. Ankesh, I also want to come back on the serious topic that Smriti talked about is what are the speed breakers where the journey of female is getting, and that's maternity, and how are we handling that part in our organizational cultures.
Marriage and maternity.
Marriage and maternity.
Marriage and maternity, of course, right. So, if I can add more on this.
Yeah, that's not out of the syllabus question.
Right. So, that part of maternity leave, right. And I thought we have streamlined 6 months leave. Excellent, we are doing everything. In-depth interviews. My colleagues are here with whom I spoke also. Hi, Mahima. Right, we spoke. I think the attitude is still, hey, she's going for a paid holiday. It's not a paid holiday, remember.
I know.
It's a serious responsibility that the female has. So we cannot laugh about it and we cannot be jealous about this. Hey, it's a company is going to pay her. Right?
Yeah.
I have an example from a 12-14 years researcher, top organization, will not take any name. She was going for a surrogacy, right? The general impression in the office was, you're not bearing a child, right? That's somebody else, right?
Oh.
Why 6 months leave for you? Okay, allowed, right? But for some complications, the baby, instead of June, the delivery happened in May, and she had to go for a leave little early. She made a call to the boss and said, happily, after 14 years, I'm a mother, and she, आप enjoy करो. And मेरे CEO ने मेरी लगा दी है.
अच्छा.
Because I've handled your case better, आप पहले leave पे चले गए.
Yeah.
And she said, this is when I have spent 14 years with this organization, and this is how
Yeah.
I've been treated.
Yeah.
Right, so when the pregnancies and maternity leaves are happening, few things which I have seen in the system, including in the MR industry, इसका increment कम कर दो, she's going to be on a leave for the 6 months, इसका पैसा उठा के इसको दे दो.
Yeah.
It's happening,
Exactly.
It does.
right?
Yeah.
Secondly, इसका the score, the annual score of performance review. 3-4 है, but 6 months उसने काम ही नहीं किया. उससे पहले भी वो थोड़ी बीमार थी, ये काम कर रही थी, 2 कर दो. इस साल increment कम देना पड़ेगा, right? I think, and I learned this over the last few days because I thought everything is hunky-dory here, right? It's not.
Yeah.
It's important that when we are speaking to our colleagues in the office and we have an influence for the HR policies, we are talking that how do we create a culture where people respect that, hey, it is maternity, is their right, it's not a paid holiday. We need to give them right rewards, not कि 6 अब तो ये छोड़ना नहीं है इसने, right? 6 महीने की तो ये रहेगी यहाँ पे, राइट? तो इसका पैसा यहाँ पे जरूर इंक्रीमेंट, राइट? How we handle this? See the speed breakers that the lady, and I have cases where people said I didn't get the support, I had a miscarriage. How do I do? Because my leader wanted me to come to the office because they knew that I would not be available after 3 months, for 6 months, right? So they said you have to come to the office every day. So how do we handle these things? So because if we can smoothen out these speed breakers, I think we will have more female leaders also at the top. And so I'm remembering female leaders and male leaders. Leader is the leader, right? Right. We will have more leaders. We will have more diversity at the top.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dixit. I mean, I think that's very encouraging. That the next question, which I was about to ask, what do you see as a truly inclusive environment for the next 5 to 10 years? You very well articulated it. So I would not ask that question to the beautiful ladies. One key message that you would like men to take away from this panel discussion.
Well, okay. Lots of things to take back, but I think one thing I would say is that allyship is not a scary space. It's not threatening you at all. So please don't feel threatened. It is just about finding a level playing field, right? It's just about creating a way. And I think men hold a very strong and valuable place in doing that across organizations and not just MR, because they are at the top, right? So if you have to create a talent pipeline which has women, you are the guys who have to do that. So, you got to be the catalyst to do this and not someone who we are going to be replacing. So I think that's very important that you have to take back.
Beautiful.
I think the key message I would like to leave behind is that you have to walk the talk. I mean, you have to actually show that you understand what women go through. So when somebody would be pregnant or was coming back from maternity leave, he would go to their houses and he would talk to their parents and their husband to say, she's so valuable to us, please don't hold her back, And I mean, just think of the impact that your chairman is coming to your house and saying, this person is very valuable, please make sure she comes back. So that is called walking the talk, really. And I really would like men to do that, men who are in leadership positions. Because I mean, for years, your mothers, daughters, sisters, wives have supported you. It's time to return the favor now.
So the panel has already spoken about the key message, and that is learn and unlearn. Till the time the courage to learn and unlearn does not happen, it might remain very restricted in terms of men who are providing allyship to women. Only in a certain type of social sector, society, only in certain metropolitan cities probably, but the situation is not going to change across. And the thing is, the truth is that when men speak about equality and equity, other men do listen. When Dixit speaks, men do listen more. And therefore that needs to be utilized much more by all of us, recognizing that and encouraging our allies to speak loudly about it. So for men, I think the one-line message is that if you want to go faster, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So thank you so much for your insights, your candor, and the leadership in the space of MR that you've been talking about. So thank you so much,
Thank you.
the guest, and to our audience. Let's take this discussion beyond.
My message.
Yeah, Dixit's message, yeah. Yeah.
The message that Dixit actually gave, a lot of people actually applauded to that. So I think you should ask him to write a book and then take it away. With Thank you so much, Dixit.
Again, my message is I need to do a lot.
Okay.
Indeed.
And especially when my daughter is sitting here and listening to my thoughts, I
Yeah.
think she's going to challenge me at home that what are you doing to write the Allyship ad.
I think you just won a lot of brownie points with your book.
I think no, not just she. Everybody here would definitely, after this conversation, will come back to you and ask for your help. Because there's a lot to drive in this space, and we rightly discussed. It's not just us; it's we. We always talk about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.